So what are the words I always tell you on this broadcast? What don't I ever believe in? I don't believe there's any such thing as coincidence, and all the world's a stage. Put those two together and you'll quickly realize what modern day politics is all about, but then out comes another validation of the statement. Joe Biden is handed a bucket list. Here's the demands of what we want you to do in your last 100 days. Moments after this is published, Biden does the unthinkable. He moves to protect Trump in the sternest of matters. What just happened? What was just published? And why now do these arch enemies suddenly appear for at least a moment in time? Well, one wants to protect the other. It's a story I'm going to bring you here in just 1 minute. All right, love getting this out of the way in the beginning, but important to me. I want to make sure you're still subscribed, or if you're new here, please subscribe. Make sure your bell is checked to all so you're alerted to upcoming broadcasts. A portion of this segment I did over at Lisa Haven's channel. If you haven't subscribed to her channel yet, there's a link above. I want you to get there. If you want to support us both, if you love all these efforts, I just don't ask for donations. I give you something in return. I give you more news. That more news is at restrictedrepublic.com, where Lisa and Haven and I broadcast daily. Exclusive content only found there, plus all these broadcasts with all the commercials and interruptions removed. It is non-stop news viewing, audience-funded news, beholden to no one. That's why we did no sponsors or advertisers. I need you there today, please. Use discount code INDEPENDENT, $4 a month for 2 years. Best part about it? Cancel anytime. You see it again. Discount code INDEPENDENT. Monthly checkout. RestrictedRepublic.com. $4 a month for 2 years. 14 days for free. And you cancel anytime you want. That's how much we believe in the platform. We believe in you. And why we bring you the news like this story we're going to get back to right now. Let's get some smaller headlines out of the way first. Kamala Harris accused of plagiarizing at least a dozen sections of her criminal justice book. Why was anybody surprised by this? Kamala's already stated that she's going to plagiarize Biden's presidency. Remember? No difference at all. But go ahead, we'll play along for a moment. An investigation conducted by Dr. Stefan Weber, famed Austrian plagiarism hunter, goes ahead, explores her books, and gives some, bombshell testimony about it, saying that in long and short portions of the book, or as this was NPR put out, conservative activist seizes on passages from Harris' book. Well, he didn't really seize on passages from Harris' book, because even the New York Times here, who uses the same headline, states that 5 passages that were cited appeared to have been taken partly from other publisher works without quotation marks, which is, I know, plagiarism. Well, why would we be surprised at all? Christopher Rufo putting this out, by the way. Harris has already said she would have done, nothing differently than Biden. So doesn't that mean she's, in essence, going to plagiarize the Biden presidency? Call it what you will. Irrelevant in some points. But there's a more important story that's brewing, a much more important story. Not only Kamala's confusion, I could play clips about that all day long. But I want to get down to the essence of what's happening. Something she said in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday. I listened to, I don't even call it a speech, because it is the same tired talking points recited over and over, no matter where she's at. They both do it. I get it. At least Trump goes off script. Kamala, when she goes off script, here's what you get.
There's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation. What does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you?
Maybe she'll use that defense for her book. It was just points that I pulled somewhere, but look at what the book actually says. But nonetheless, this is the one who is continually repeated that Trump says he'll be a dictator on day one. That statement taken out of context, of course. She's warned of the dangers of Trump's dictatorship, but wait till you see the list that Biden was just given. And then the reaction of what Biden has, which is astounding. Here was the speech given yesterday. This was on C-SPAN. You can see, just go on to the headlines here. Democratic presidential nominee, Vice President Harris campaigned in Erie, Pennsylvania. She warns supporters that a second Trump term would be a huge risk and dangerous for America. October 14th of 2024, just to put everything in context, here is what she had to say.
So much is on the line in this election, and we have to remember, this is not 2016 or 2020. The stakes are even higher. Because a few months ago, the United States Supreme Court just told the former president that he would be essentially immune from anything he does while he's in office. Now, just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, right? He who has vowed, if reelected, that he will be a dictator on day one.
Oh, pretty clean cut, always the same talking points, but you heard clearly there that the Supreme Court has given him authority basically to get away with anything he wants. How dare he do that, and how dare the Supreme Court give him authority to do so? And if you truly believed in that for one moment, none within your party or that represent your party on the liberal establishment side would ever state anything to the contrary, except they just did. Jonathan Turley exposing it. No kidding, no joke. Liberals call on Biden to commit unconstitutional acts in his final days. With the end of the Biden administration in sight, liberal pundits seem to be striving to prove that the only difference between a lawbreaker and a law-abiding citizen is the ability to get away with the crime. Popular figures on the left, from Michael Moore to Keith Olbermann, are calling on President Joe Biden to commit overtly unlawful acts in his final 100 days in office, including targeting his political opponents, like he hasn't done that for the last 4 years. Kamala actually states that how dare when Trump has now threatened to use lawfare against his political opponents, but Kamala, that's all you've done for 4 years now. In one of the few statements, going back to the article, of Moore, with which I agree, he stated, this is no joke. It certainly is not. There's actually a couple things in Moore's bucket list. This Michael Moore, I know you all know who he is. This bucket list, to be more specific. President Biden has 100 days left in office. He has newly granted supreme powers with immunity and no political consequences. What if he were to use them? In other words, what you are saying that Trump is going to do, what you are complaining that Trump now has the ability to do based on the Supreme Court, you are now telling Joe to do the same thing. Hypocritical much? Let's go through some of these talking points, because he re-establishes once again in a quote, and I did mention, you have full immunity. No kidding, no joke. That's not hyperbole. You can get away with anything, and what if anything means everything to the people? He goes through a multitude of things outlined to Joe Biden as to what he wants him to do. Cancel all student debt now. How many times have we heard this mantra? I guess nobody thinks about the financial impacts of what this would cost the United States, who's dead-ass broke right now. Student loan debt averages and other statistics published on September 9th of 2024 on USA Today. How much would canceling all that student loan debt cost the great Republic of the United States of America? $1.74 trillion. This is no joke, and it is no laughing matter. There's nothing funny about it without having a plan to back it up. But let's go further. Cancel medical debt too. America's owed $220 billion in medical debt to our corrupt, bloated, broken, and exploitative healthcare system. Well, there's another problem with that statement. A big problem. First, where are we going to come up with the $220 billion? Second, you're calling the entire establishment broken, corrupt, bloated, and exploitative. You may want to listen to your own party here for just a minute, Michael.
And on top of all all of this, Donald Trump intends to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And he has no plan to replace it.
It appears Michael Moore is stating that you have no plan within the Affordable Care Plan or Act. But you see, this is what Democrats do. They eat their own. They always have, and they always will. Michael Moore goes on to close Guantanamo Bay, give it back to Cuba, long story short. And while you're doing that, let's free Cuba also. So not worried that they're a communist nation. Just let that go. Because the UN says so, we should do it. This would be devastational to the United States. And any one of these acts that he so proposes be done. Be Israel's best friend. Stop the slaughter. Oh, he doesn't want him to be their best friend. He wants them to stop all weapon shipments immediately. Demand a ceasefire, which will not happen. Israel, even if they did choose to comply, would be bombarded immediately. Because there's now a law. He's now stating law matters, even though most of this, if enacted, would be against the Constitution of the United States of America, mind you. He now cites a law which prohibits, this is the Leahy Law, which prohibits the United States from funding and arming foreign military forces if the Secretary of State has credible information that that military unit is violating human rights. Oh, and it's the law. He goes on even further. So stop funding Israel, make them demand a ceasefire, and then when they get demolished by Hamas and Hezbollah and everybody else in Iran who's targeting them, things happen, right, Michael? Genius foreign politics you have. Remove those Cuban sanctions. Don't worry the underlying reasoning behind it, because if you were to remove those sanctions, have we not seen already under the Biden-Harris administration that when you remove sanctions, embargoes, what happens? Well, let's just take Iran as an example, shall we? You give them billions back, and next thing you know, they're lobbing missiles right into Israel. You see, Michael, learn your foreign international politics and keep your mouth shut. Because you have no idea what you're talking about. No idea. And these ideas, to hand them to Biden, are dangerous, irresponsible, unconstitutional to go further. Empty federal death row. All 40 people on federal death row, let them go. Then he wants people forgiven, including Leonard Peltier, Edward Snowden, one I don't particularly disagree with, by the way. He goes through a whole litany of people he'd like released, forgiven. Here's one thing that me and Michael actually agree on. I know. It's hard to believe this. Ban all spam texting messages, including political fundraising text messages. Okay? I completely and implicitly agree with this. If I get one more damn text, I don't care from what side of the aisle, I'm going to go out of my ever-loving mind. I can't cancel them quick enough to stop it. If I want to give you money, I will find out how to give you money. You don't need to text me 7,500 times a day. Back to unconstitutional. In this bucket list, Michael Moore to Biden. Biden reaction. Very unusual. Grant clemency to nonviolent drug offenders, many of whom need help and recovery. Now our prison system is overbloated. We tend to throw everyone in prison here. We have a major problem. 50,000 people. Network of lawyers have focused on 50,000 people in 4 large groups of unjustifiable imprisoned people. But there needs to be law behind this, Michael. You can't just simply do this with the stroke of a presidential pen. You could, mind you. But why would you? When you're claiming that Trump should never have been granted this immunity by the Supreme Court for presidential acts, but yet you're now telling Joe Biden to do the exact same. Kamala Harris is campaigning against the immunity that Trump has been given. And if he becomes president with that immunity, everybody hold on. The dictator will be in full form. It's beyond Michael Moore. Keith Olbermann here. Elon Musk to be deported. Says Biden needs to get Mogul the F out of the country. I can't see in any way, shape, or form how that request is lawful, legal, constitutional, or even moral. What has Elon Musk done other than represent a big portion of your agenda you believe in, the green agenda in its entirety? But yet, because he happens to support the wrong political party, he should be deported. Biden received request after request. The counter-constitutional movement, the assault on America's defining principle. There's a whole column on how many legal scholars are going to Biden asking him to do the same thing they're declaring that Trump is able to do. Uproot the U.S. Constitution. Remember Kamala Harris? Hard to forget. I know. Listen in here for a moment.
He who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States.
Kamala, I'm sorry that you maybe not have seen Michael Moore's bucket list, Keith Olbermann's request, the many legal scholars reaching out to Biden to do the exact same, or the own violation of rule of law that under the eviction moratorium you extended that in itself was canceling the Constitution. But let's forget about all of that, right? Let's forget about all of it. Thankfully, we have people like Jonathan Turley who are wise enough, smart enough to help exploit and show all of this. Even your own party destroys you on something that many deem unconstitutional. I'm going to play you the whole clip because I don't know if a lot of you received the whole context of this clip. You received an edited portion of it, about 38 seconds. It was a minute 12 seconds. But I think it's important you listen to the whole clip so you can, and I will help you, dismiss, even when it is played its entirety, the inaccuracy that many are pointing out. Hold on one second.
And on the immigration thing, she's the only candidate who has actually endorsed a bill that would hold down immigration in any given year to a certain point, and then make sure we gave people a decent place to live. We didn't divide people from their children. And we did total vetting before people got in. Now, Trump killed the bill. The bill was being written by senior Republicans in the Senate. And he killed the bill. Why? You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an...
Stop it there. This is the clip as to where it begins on the one that you're more than likely seeing on your social media. This is where it begins. There was just a case in Georgia. Now let him continue.
About a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up, so we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work.
Okay, we need immigrants who are vetted. Trump killed a bill in the Senate. The bill, by the way, introduced 2 years after Lincoln Riley's illegal alien murder was freed into the country by Harris, which gave illegals a fast track to citizenship. Is that the bill that Clinton's referring to? Because it is. The bill introduced 2 years after Lincoln's illegal alien murder was freed into the country. The bill would have done nothing to stop it. So let's put things into true context, shall we, before people try to dismiss the entire clip, because at the end of the day, it is unvetted migrants that are of concern. But after all these bucket lists, after all these requests of Biden to do the exact same thing that they are criticizing Trump for having the ability to do if he is elected president, Biden turns the page, as Kamala likes to say. For the first time, now that all this information's hitting Biden, what does he do? Does he further attack Trump? Nope. The President of the United States tells me that real Donald Trump should be afforded the same Secret Service protections as if he were the sitting president. He continued, give him all that he needs. If it fits within that category, that's fine. But if it doesn't, he shouldn't. But that isn't all he did now, is it? Because if you watched my story Unrestricted about Trump requesting military aircraft and vehicles, things to fight missiles, shoot missiles down, stop drones, what does Biden do after receiving all these requests? Biden warns Iran that U.S. would consider assassination attempts on Trump as an act of war. I hope you're as stunned as I am by that statement. Joe Biden, whose public enemy number one, whose boogeyman in the closet has always been Donald J. Trump, had a moment for once just to remain silent if he wanted, to allow the threats to persist, to take this arsenal of lists provided to him and uproot the entire the great Republic of the United States as we know it even further. But rather than do that, not that I'm saying he won't yet, he takes the opportunity to further protect Donald J. Trump. Now, I'm not sure quite yet what to make of that. But remember, there is no such thing as coincidence. And all the world is a stage. I can't wait to see your comments on this. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.